Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy, the Pilot Namiki Vanishing Point fountain pen. See? It's kind of nifty, right? First off, I do want to thank my buddy Jim. He sent this guy along, and I actually owned one of these for a few years back when. And there's a lot of good here, and it's a great pen, but I had sold mine, and so now I get a chance to actually do a review with one present. And so it's really awesome of him to send it along for me to do that. That's great. First off, I want to do a quick size comparison here. Here is a Prometheus Alpha pen, which is one of the very best EDC options out there. Hinderer Investigator, for those of you interested in that. Here's a Parker Jotta. Here is a Pilot G2 for size, a regular Sharpie, a Kawiko Lilliput, tiny little fountain pen, and it's a Lilliputian, if you will, and a standard cartridge converter, and what the heck, a US quarter. So, there you go. One thing I do want to say about this guy, this particular model is the medium point, and the Japanese fountain pens do tend to run with a fairly fine nib, so medium point is not all that medium in the grand scheme of things. And the other thing I want to point out is how this basically works. I don't know that you're going to be able to see this, but yeah, let me try and use a flashlight to illuminate the inside of this. Let's see here if I can pull this off. Hopefully you can see. Inside there's actually a little flap that pops open, and then the pen itself comes popping out. And then the flap closes behind the pen. So it's not just that the nib is hiding underneath there, waiting to come out. There is actually a flap that closes it off, which is kind of a nifty little trick here. And so when you pop this out, the fountain pen comes in. When you pop it back, the fountain pen goes back in. Beautiful. So there you go. Let's go on ahead and do my usual. Jump in on, look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of your Pilot Namiki Vanishing Point pen. There is a lot of good here. One thing is that there's no cap to lose. It's very easy, especially if you're walking around and writing on a clipboard or something like that, unless the cap posts really nicely on the end of the pen. This gives it's very easy. You never have to think about the cap where it is. You can't lose the cap because there really is no cap. That's nice. And so that's a beautiful thing. Another nice thing is that there is no ability, no matter how absent-minded you are, to put the pen back in your pocket, tip down, upside down. If you forget to click it shut and you put it in your pocket, the nib will be hanging up out here, but it shouldn't be writing all over you in any particular way. And you'll probably notice anyways, and you know, it hangs into your pocket with the plunger down. So that's kind of a nice thing for the absent-minded among us. The balance on this guy when writing is really spectacular. This is great in the hand. I am a huge fan of this pen in the hand. Absolutely beautiful. It does have a nice satisfying click and spring feeling. This is a nice process. Doing this has I don't know, it's just in a tactile way. It's mechanically very nice. The feeling in the hand overall is really great, and the fit and finish on this guy is really great too. It's got nice polish here, and it just feels nice. And then finally, this is a really incredible writing pen. I am a big fan, and I'm on a textured table, unfortunately. But nonetheless, this is really nice. Big fan of this. And so, as a writer, this is probably the nicest writing fountain pen I've really handled. Not to say the other ones are all bad, but this is just really good. And so that's your good on it. There's no cap to lose. You can't accidentally put the pen in your pocket uncapped. Or at least if you do, it doesn't matter. The balance is great. The feeling in the hand is great. The click and spring feeling is nice. The fit and finish on the pen is really nice. And honestly, it's just an incredible writing pen. I'm a huge fan of it. So there you go. Let's go ahead and talk about the bad here. So on the bad side, there are some downsides here. First off, it takes a non-standard cartridge. It takes this Pilot Namiki cartridge as opposed to a more standard version. It's not a bad cartridge, and you know, some of the inks are great. The blue-black is really good. But anyways, it's a little higher capacity, but it's a little harder to find. So your ink selection is going to be a little limited relative to a more standard cartridge. Note, this is how it goes in there. It goes in with the wide end first. So Kind of cool, right? And so there you go. That's a little bit unpleasant. It's not the end of the world, though, by any stretch. It does also, there are cartridge converters you can get for it. The included converter that's a screw-down jobber is not great. In fact, I'll go so far as to say it's bad. It has very low capacity. It's not fun to fill. You can, however, purchase a bulb-style kind of squeezy converter that is quite good for this guy. It just, you had the, I forget where I even went, this was years ago, but you go to a weird website and you get one. And that works like a charm, so that's something nice. It is a little odd that the clip lives right between your fingers like this. For some writing styles, that might be a problem. For mine, it really isn't. And you get used to it quickly, but it is unusual and a little strange. So that's something to keep in mind. And then finally, in terms of pocketability, this pen is a little unusual. I mean, if you look at the length of it, it is a little bit longer than most pens. You know, aligning the clip to the same place in the shirt pocket, it's longer than, for instance, your Parker Jotter. It's way longer than some of your other options. And so, you know, you got to keep that in mind. And more importantly, this is a pen that's really only suited to an open top pocket, like a shirt pocket. This is not a pen that I would feel comfortable throwing into, say, the pocket of my cargo pants, or something like that, because I'd worry that I would accidentally hit this and then just break the nib right off, and that's no good for a $130 pen. So, yeah, it's a little bit unusual, I'll say it that way. Yeah, so there you go. This is, I guess, this is really a pen that's not meant for EDC in the technical sense. I mean, this guy you can just throw in any pocket and you're not going to really give a damn. Same thing over here. But this is really a writing instrument that needs to be treated with a little bit more respect and refinement. You know, put it in a leather pad holder or something. That's how I used mine. So, anyways, yeah, there you go. So that's your bad. It takes a weird cartridge. The included converter is just bad, but you can get a good one. The clip lands right between your fingers, which is a little unusual, and it's a little odd in the pocket. It's not a great choice for EDC in the classical sense. It needs to be treated with a lot of respect. So there you go. Let's talk about the ugly. So there are two ugly issues with this guy. The first one is that it has a drying out issue. So, like I showed you, it's got the little flap there that protects the nib most of the way, but it's not a great seal relative to some of your other kind of more screwed down sorts of caps. And as a result, this guy does have a tendency to dry out if it's left kind of to its own devices. Particularly given that when it's clipped vertically, the ink will drain out of the nib naturally. So it was often the case when I owned this guy, and I was in fewer meetings then. So it would, you know, I might go a week or 2 weeks between using it. That next time I tried to use it again, I would be, you know, all dried out. And so I would have to, you know, either do a bunch of this stuff to try and get the ink flow back going. Maybe I'm sitting here in the meeting trying to lick the tip, and that's just not a terribly professional thing to do, to have a blue-black tongue during the meeting. Or even ducking off to the men's room to try and wet it down a little bit. And then it got started, no problem, but that was less than ideal, and that's part of the thing that moved me towards either rollerball or fine liner sorts of refills that don't have any of those concerns whatsoever. So that is a particular problem with this guy. It does tend to dry out if you're not using it. So this is a pen you need to use regularly, and if you're not using it regularly, this isn't the best fountain pen for you. The other thing is that fountain pens aren't necessarily the best choice for a modern EDC, partly because there are questions about flying. You can certainly fly with a fountain pen. I did it before, and I never had any major issues, but it is always something you have in the back of your mind there. If you take out the refill ahead of time and swap in a new one when you land, you got no problems, but still. And the bigger issue is that it doesn't work with anything that's pressure sensitive. So if you're writing on carbon paper, for instance, that gives you a couple of copies in writing in triplicate or anything like that, this flat out won't work. You don't use enough pressure to write. That makes it really comfortable for long-term writing. Fountain pens are great for that, but they're not great for a lot of these weird specialized modern sorts of writing, or if you're trying to sign your name, but you have to do it on a computer screen in the back to simultaneously capture. So, you know, this is suited to one kind of writing, but it's a kind of writing that's increasingly less common in the modern era. So, and also lefties, you're going to be dragging your finger through wet ink. That's just your hand, that is, through wet ink. Something to keep in mind. So that's the ugly, is that it dries out weirdly quickly, and that fountain pens these days are less ideal for EDC for a lot of situations. But they're still pretty damn good. So what's the final verdict here? So, I mean, conclusion, this is a great fountain pen. It's an absolutely wonderful writing instrument. It's comfortable, it's nicely done. There's just so much damn good here. It's one of the best pens I've ever handled. And certainly one of the best ones I've ever owned. There's a whole lot of good here, and it's got that unique little trick with the pop-out nib there. For me, unfortunately, the drying issues made that a big problem, but if you write regularly, you're probably going to absolutely love it. But the thing is, this is a pretty narrow aim writing instrument. If you write all the time and you're not doing things on carbon paper and things like this is absolutely stellar. Absolutely a great, great pen for somebody who writes all the damn time. If you absolutely love fountain pens, this is also a really great pen to try. If you haven't gone here yet, you might as well. You know whether fountain pens work for you, and there's just a whole lot of joy to be found right here. If you're just looking to try a fountain pen, this might be overkill. At $130, this is a fair chunk of change, and it does have that disadvantage. If you're not using it all the damn time, you're going to have some struggles there. But if you just want a pen to everyday carry, this is probably a little too niche for your needs. It doesn't work in all the pockets. It's not particularly durable. It's not particularly well suited to hard use in any sort of way. And so, this is really a fancy writing instrument for a fair amount of fancy writing. So I'll say, as my final conclusion, it wasn't the gem for me because of the drying issues, but it could very, very easily be a gem for you. And so at the end of the day, I highly recommend this pen if it suits what you're doing with your life. And there you go. So I hope this has been interesting, that I made the right call, get it right, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.